Hello everyone, System Jock here with the next episode of the Apostle Obsonate playthrough of Cultist Simulator. I'm starting on the main title here because I actually missed last week's recording session. I'm going to need a little while to reacquaint myself with where the session is at, but it did give me a chance to take a second and say thank you very much for all the feedback, for all of the kind words that you've been offering in the comments. I read all of them and I try to bring them, the feedback on board, but of course I'm speaking to you from the very distant past, and it does include the comments that I know a lot of you would like to see these updated a little bit more frequently. The fact that I missed a recording session last week is one of the reasons why these are currently being released once a week. But needless to say, I would like to do more. I'd like to release more often, and I'm trying to get a level of discipline up where I'm able to deliver that for you. The best I can recommend, as always, if you'd like to be notified about the next episode coming up, you can feel free to hit the subscribe button and the little bell beside it to enable the notifications. And as always, if you'd like to see these videos kind of get a broader audience, or also just to see them come up in your feed a little bit more often, as always, feel free to offer your likes. And as I mentioned, the comments have been very nice, so feel free to keep sending those. And if it's a little more critical, just remember there's a human being on the other end, but I do try to take the feedback on as well. So I just took a minute on that, so let's just jump in and see where the session is at. So one of the things, this is not a bad time to maybe reacquaint ourselves with the game and maybe what to do when you've been away from Cultist Simulator for a while. Like any game, life sometimes gets in the way. That's pretty much what the story of Cultist Simulator is about, the demands of the everyday world on us. And so what are some of the things that you can do, either whether you got lost in something else or you're coming back from the game from a little while? And to me, one of the first things I do is take a look at what my verbs are doing. So right now we've got unskilled labor going on. I seem to remember that we had a little bit of money trouble. Currently, our Glover and Glover position is a bit tenuous. We've been promoting believers, and I remember that we were trying to fill the ranks. That's probably one of my biggest weaknesses on this playthrough right now. I've been improving my imagination. I am interested to see whether or not we're going to be able to pull off another level. I'll be able to get two lessons learned out of these, but I don't think it'll be enough for me to push it over the edge. But we can maybe still keep trying the whole painting thing. We've still got about 3 minutes left on the Savorous Blood, although we did have to give up our effort to try and get the spices. And we are currently buying something from Glover and Glover. Now, if this winds up being a collection of poetry, that would be very helpful because that'll get me the glimmering lesson learned. But we'll see where it all goes. The only thing that's not currently being used right now is the way to the wood. This would be sort of the door through the Mansus. We have a number of occult scraps, but I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world for me to try and pursue another scrap. We currently haven't been investigating any of the special locations. And do we know anything about our enemy? Not right now. We have bleak thoughts, and the weary detective is closing in on us. So I think that gives me enough information about the state of things to get going. I think let's go through the way in the wood, and let's see how the rest of this plays out. Place behind desire. Is there something to be learned from the satisfaction of desire? In pain we are born, in hunger we are embraced, in delight we are devoured. These are the gates of the body, and this is her promise. Not all that is born decays. In remembrance of that promise, we give ourselves to the feast. So Neville has now turned into a level 5 knock follower, a disciple. Neville's gaze has grown furtive, and his voice is sometimes shrill. He speaks freely of his dreams. So the nice thing here about where Neville's at is knock is very helpful for summoning creatures, so I can feel a little more secure in my position, especially if I want to start going on some expeditions, as far as basically being able to fill in any gaps inside of my lineup. Now I'm still going to need influences. I'm still going to need ways of actually turning that. Well, I was going to say edge, but that knock, I suppose. I'm still going to need some ways to actually get those summons underway, but I'm suddenly a lot less constrained in terms of what kind of help I'm going to be able to bring in. Now, the talk verb is pretty important to me right now, and this is just because it's my way of turning everyone into either into super followers or to get some more people inside of the cult. So I'm going to take the Order of the Bloody Cup. I'm going to turn Eldridge into a disciple. Now, I have a little bit less use for... oh, he's an acquaintance, sorry. Actually, I have a little less use for an edge follower, but at some point I'm going to have to turn people into useful tools. So we'll run with that. The reason we got the place behind Desire was because of our use of Grail. And that's kind of helpful here just because, remember how I was saying I was wondering if we could get that third lesson learned? Well, all of a sudden it looks quite a bit more likely. So my desires grow in number. It may be that they will always outpace my actions. So we got an extra passion for that. We need 3 lessons learned to upgrade our passion, but we've got 2 of them with this glimmering here. We'll get a half of our third at the moment, which means I can either sit down and study a passion, or I might be able to obtain it through other means. For instance, I could try and do another painting. I could, of course, try and do the same thing with my vitality, but that's a little bit more, it's a little more dodgy. All right, well, we knew the Notoriety was going to get picked up at some point. It was maybe... I wasn't expecting it to be that quickly. And we found our first book from Moorlands, Wrapped in the King. Detailed accounts by James Colin Murphy of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises in graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. I seem to remember that this one is particularly grim in terms of its reading, but we'll work with what we've got. I'm debating about whether or not I would like to try and send a disciple out to investigate the world a little bit more. We have the main places where we want to buy things. I'm more reluctant to be using the funds on Moorlands at the moment, just because I am a little short and I am going to be wanting to get some painting in. So for the time being, let's get some expeditions, I think. I'm going to need those at some point, so we'll grab the vaults that we can and move forward accordingly. Alright, they will not forget the savor I have given them. So we've got our Anthic collaboration back. Eldridge is now a believer. Eldridge has almost learnt not to pick his teeth with his knife in conversation. He has not yet learnt to leave his knife in his boot. So I think in this case here, one of the nice things about trying to upgrade people in the Grail is every time you invoke Grail, you potentially generate that other glimmering, and that is something that I want to be doing. So no point in leaving Eldridge on the shelf. The only thing that I might want to do in terms of holding off these promotions is if I save some people to upgrade, sometimes if I get a negative influence, so let's say that this was Dread. Obviously it's not, because this was the season of despair. But sometimes it's helpful to keep some followers in reserve just to be able to put some of those negative influences away. There are other ways that you can do that too, but in this case here, I really do need some bodies. It is one of the things that's been keeping my progress, so at this point, it's kind of all hands on deck. The others speak little to me here now. But they now nod when I pass. Here is my pay. All right, so I've got my hardened physique. I know it's going to take quite a bit of effort for me to try and push that even higher. I suppose the question is whether or not I want to try. So let's take advantage of my wild imagination. Looks like we do have some staleness, so I'm going to chuck a couple of passion inside of this one and do something that's maybe a little bit more about my emotions. We'll take that fleeting reminiscence and do a mood piece. One of the secret hopes is that I'll wind up with a glimmering from this as well. And we do have the Course of the Heart, so I might be able to convert some of this vitality into a lesson learned, but again, it's a little bit of a lower priority compared to being able to combine this glimmering into something useful. And again, part of this is just the balance. Some of these are opportunities that I have in the moment, and so I want to try and convert those into something that I can use at the time. So this is a good example here. I've got a peculiar rumor. Now, there is a danger in using this because I currently don't have a way of getting rid of the evidence, or at the very least, the way that I can potentially get rid of the evidence is one that involves a follower that I may not want to lose. So the question here is, do I think getting a follower is worth the danger of potentially getting damning evidence? The other way you might be able to think about this would be if this turns into damning evidence. Not only do I have the potential of losing the follower as a result of trying to get rid of the evidence, but I also have the chance of losing the follower from the damning evidence itself triggering. So in some cases I would be full steam ahead. I would feel a little bit better if I had a summon like a Callagine to deal with it. So, and the more important thing is that I really don't have much of my vaults. Finally, I also did say that if I had some influence, I would be a little bit more comfortable summoning something. So while I'm really inclined towards following up on peculiar rumors, in this case I think I'm going to go to one of the deeper locations inside of the Mansis, and let's visit the Temple of the Wheel here. Alright, the subtle flaw is actually the least useful out of all of these, because of course I already have Neville for summoning. Although I guess I don't have a ritual for summoning, so it wouldn't have mattered one way or the other. Laces uncoil, windows swing open, locks move as if oiled. A second order influence, apparent to the perceptive, instantly recognizable to an adept. This can be used in some rites to summon minions. Last night I came in the wood to the high jagged rock called the Temple of the Wheel. Its flank patched with black lichen and eye signs opened like a mouth beneath my hands, and I walked in the whispering space within. The gods who were stone, the first of the hours, are almost gone, all gone now, but their voices remain. Wheel, Flint, Tide, and the others without names. So I think we're going to go straight back, although I know I am short on passion to throw at the problem. Alright, so I could spend money on better paints, or perhaps I could find more exotic pigments, so we will spend. Now what I probably should have done, so I was taking a look at Slee, we had ongoing preparations, we had the Long's plan revealed dreams, our enemy will find us through the Mansis this time. A shadowy presence, their powers formidable, their identity as yet unknown. Once Long's might, connections, or starlight reaches 3, it may be possible to unmask them. And in this case, our enemy has set a candle in the High Mansis window, and its light will infiltrate our dreams. So had I been a little more cautious, so I sent the spy in, but I didn't necessarily do anything about it. In this case, had I sent a moth or a winter follower, I would have probably been able to do something about that. And of course, here I have a moth follower. But lesson learned. Different kind of lesson learned, but lesson for me learned, let's say. I'm going to pause for some refreshment for myself. Alright. There are more windows in my soul, but sunlight is not the only thing that passes through a window. Use this lesson learnt with your imagination skill. So I think we're going to just crash these two glimmerings into feeding my imagination again. So as nice as it is to have the book, the glimmerings are a bit more time sensitive. And of course, I'm sort of putting my my hardened physique on the back burner here, but that's just because at some point I need to make a decision in terms of what priorities I want to follow. And as nice as it is to have the hardened physique for earning money, it's not really going to earn me money at the rate that I need. Seek out secret places in the city. Did I? Oh no, that's right. I was looking for the vault. Alright, this plate merits closer investigation. So we've got the Congregation of St. Felix of Shuren, a nonconformist enclave of a heterodox sect of a Calvinist offshoot, tucked away in an odd corner of the city. They belt out hymns with unsuitable gusto, and the throat-scraping language that is very much not quite like Latin. So one thing that's kind of neat about these locations, if you have played this game a lot, you sort of get a memory, or at least you have a fairly good idea of what you're going to be going up against. But what's kind of neat here is that when you read these descriptions, you kind of get a thought about what you might be up against in some of the future encounters. And as you pursue the expeditions, again, you wind up with a few more hints in terms of what's coming up. I'll show you also how you can know exactly what you're up against inside of these without necessarily having to use a wiki or something along those lines. But if it hasn't been obvious yet, reading the text is really the fun of this game. Now, I'm not quite ready to commit to an expedition. My funds are quite low, and I'm still a little short on followers. So here we'll look for another place to go. This is one of the nice things about stacking up those occult scraps, is that when I'm short like this, I still have something I can do. This is something special. It may provoke a reaction. Now, really, this was about getting rid of my staleness, so we'll see whether or not I pulled that off. I did get some contentment for my trouble, but doesn't look like I got any glimmering, which is a bit of a shame. Although I did get 2 funds for it, so that wasn't a complete waste. Or at least ahead in that regard. And looks like I do still have some staleness, so I don't actually have any passion to feed this. But you know what? I think I'm going to try and go for money on this case. This is always a risky proposition because staleness, of course, lowers the value of your painting. But I'm going to make a painting called "I'm So Good at This," which is based around the satisfaction I felt about selling my previous painting. In pain we are born, in hunger we are embraced, in delight we are devoured. These are the gates of the body, and this is her promise. Not all that is born is decays, and in remembrance of that promise we give ourselves to the feast. Eldridge is waiting patiently until it's time to knife someone again. Nope, you gotta go by Rose. Okay, so at this point, let's talk about occult things. This does mean that my mystique is going to go up for trying to attract bodies. This is also going to take a passion, but I'm happy enough to pursue the kind of the extension of the cult. I'm certain that my adversary has lodged a copy of their notes elsewhere, with their solicitor, with their superior, or even with a contact in the press. This is troubling. Now, this is not an emergency yet, but the presence of evidence does mean that I need to be a little bit more careful in terms of how I'm working. So the evidence, hunters found evidence, real or imagined, of my sins. Hunters with evidence of occult activities become more dangerous. Evidence may survive the death of the hunter who created it. So I could try and kill the weary detective, or otherwise get rid of them. But it does mean that I'm going to have the difficulty of, anybody who picks up the trail is potentially going to be that much more equipped. There'll be the notoriety from getting rid of the weary detective on top of the evidence itself. I could try and use Moth to get rid of the tentative evidence itself, and as I said, the challenge with that is that it has the potential to generate some notoriety on its own, as well as lose a follower. So a few things to keep in mind. We're not in danger yet, but it would be ideal for me to avoid generating unnecessary notoriety at the current moment, and instead just try and make the most of my situation. So for instance, right now, I could spend money on better paints, or perhaps I could find more exotic pigments. So we'll see whether or not I can earn a little bit of cash doing this. And of course, we've got Fleeting Reminiscence and Fascination right now. I would normally like to get another expedition underway, but at the moment, it's Dream. I'd rather get an occult scrap for another expedition, but at this point it would not be a bad idea for me to ditch the fascination. Okay, so the buzzing in the brain doesn't do a whole lot for me, so let's take a visit to the well. And we've got a peculiar rumor, so now it's even more dangerous for me to follow up on that evidence. This might lead me somewhere I need, or it might mean something else entirely. Explore with a rumor to follow up on it. Okay, you know what? We need to start taking some risks here. So many things rise from the well in the wood. Last night it was a swarm with wormy roots. The trees clustered and whispered. Perhaps they were welcoming the influx. I found a sleeping soul ensnared in the roots, and I helped them struggle free. When they wake, they will recall my face as I do theirs. So let's try and find out who we rescued, and I'm trying to figure out whether or not I want to use my passion for anything other than going through the mantis. And you know what? No, let's keep hammering away at that. I got a couple of ideas, and we'll see if we can make it to the very end. So, in from the night, our spy has returned to us. So Slee's back. That's our lantern follower. I suppose the question is, do I want him to be spying? And I think the answer to that is yes. So let's see what painting gets us. There are more windows in my soul, but sunlight is not the only thing that passes through a window. I'm going to wait a little while on the study here. I want to see what happens after 4.3 seconds. I don't think I can wait the 24 to see if I get glimmering out of that. This is something special. It may provoke a reaction. This place merits closer investigation. Strathcoin's residence. The house of Mr. Strathcoin, a collector of rare objects. Strathcoin will not sell his treasures, but a sufficiently cunning accomplice may gain entry. Okay, so we've got an explore available, so we're going to follow up on the peculiar rumor. For some reason, I said I was going to get rid of the fascination, but I went to the wood instead. But we don't need to worry about it because contentment's coming up. Recent work is considered significant. I may yet earn a living from this, but nothing is certain. So we did make money off of it. We did get the glimmering, which is even better. We have a little more mystique to show for our efforts. That's not where I want to put it. Still stale, but... In fact, I may consider going on an expedition. In the end, we're still at 4 funds, but... I don't know, it feels more solid. That's completely made up. All right, what do I want to do with my work verb right now? I think I'm actually going to make some cash. So we'll use my hardened physique because, again, I don't have any rituals to undergo. Let's turn these glimmerings into a lesson learned so that I can boost up my wild imagination. I may wind up begging for my job back in G&G. And one of the things that I'm conscious about here is that my blood's about to run out, so I'll have to use the vitality. But it occurred to me that it's a little over 20 minutes, and I've been trying to get a little bit better at the timing. So we're going to save that for the next episode. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.